So I don't know, Dave, if you had a sort of a philosophy, a grounding philosophy, but I know one thing I I knew about you, and I believe you had a card in your pocket with a message, something about your mother. I don't know if you,
Yeah, I on my coaching cards, I always put like Tom mentioned that I had my coaching card with the lineups, our lineup, the other team's lineup, room to make some notes and some things like that. Um, and I always put down, David, your mother is watching. So behind the bench, I always thought my mother was right over my shoulder, so I had to watch my language, my deportment, because I had a beautiful mother. She's a wonderful gal, and I'd never want to disappoint her. So yeah, that just helped me keep my focus on the game. And it's interesting too. We've all been in the game. Everybody on this call today has been in the game a long time, and people ask me about the game and how it's changed. And I think the power of parents has changed the game. The power of parents. Um, to me, in my era as a young player, my parents came out to a game, but not all the games, and they came out to as many as they could. And they never, I never remember my parents ever talking about ice time or things like that. They just, whatever. Now the game has to meet the ambitions of the parents, not so much the needs of the kids. And I
Good
think
point.
that's where we're going wrong. That's why coaches feel the pressure, as you said, Wally, to have to win and things like that. It's the power of parents. They second guess the coach on the car, in the car on the way home, things like that. So it's made coaching far more difficult than it should be, because when you have to meet the ambitions of the parents, that's difficult. The needs of the kids is much easier to meet, and we want to meet. That's what we want to meet, is the needs of the kids. It's the power of the parents and the ambitions they have that sometimes get in the way and put unnecessary pressure and stuff on coaches. So, I've always worried about that because, like everybody on the call, I love the game. I love the game so much, and I just know it's a great experience for children to play our game. They just got to be helped to learn to play it the right way. I'm not talking tactics. I'm talking the whole package, to do things the right way. And it starts with the coach. But when coaches are under pressure from parents, it changes quite a bit. So that's where the game has changed. Parents are more active, more involved, more evaluative. They've made it so different.
Yeah,
So
good point.
Tom, any thoughts given a leadership role as an executive at Hockey Canada that educates coaches? And I know back in the day with Dave, rewriting a script for the Goal 3 video, and we talked about the mission statement exercise, which was exactly about what we're talking about.
Mhm.
And I know that to this day, I've sort of dedicated my life, as you know, Tom, to the getting that leadership tool out there
Mhm.
and educating coaches in all sports, not just hockey,
Yep.
because we know there's all kinds of abuse going on in all sports
Mhm.
and all kinds of lawsuits of abuse, especially in the NCAA. And they're being swept under the rug and paid for and ignored. And I think the idea of being proactive in educating our coaches to coach the right way is really important to moving forward. And it's difficult when you're in the trenches at the time, but for me and for Dave in our role and in my role, I sat back and saw the big picture. And the big picture back in that day, Dave's goal one was offensive hockey.
Mhm.
Goals two was defensive hockey. And then goal three was the injuries, hitting from behind, and the stop signs came on the backs of the jersey, it was, what are we playing the sport for? How aggressive do you really need to be? The bringing in of emotional control. That was the time Claire Drake had sort of, with Dr. Murray Smith, had started that exercise and achieved great success with it with his teams in Alberta. So I thought we would piggyback on that and give it a whirl. Not giving up on it, but the few years I've got left, I'm still gonna keep knocking on doors with that thing. And Tom, I talked to you during COVID about this and what can we do? And you said, well, try to get Hockey Alberta to pilot it. And I just found out 3 months ago with Barry Midori's leadership, uh, they they have implemented that exercise at every level.
Good
Now
stuff.
it's
Fantastic.
it's an evolving piece of work, because when you've done the exercise, you're going to do it again at Coach Two, again at Development One. It has to be tweaked, morphed, and you have to draw upon the coaches to grow it.
Yeah.
Because one little exercise that you've learned will do the trick the first time, but you just grow upon it until you get to Development One, Development Two, and HP One and 2.
Mhm.
So I'm glad I got that in anyway. So
Yeah, me too, Wally. I think it's really critical, and we talk about habits in hockey, and I think that we've got to make programs that are this effective, habitual, and perpetual at the same time. One of the reasons Canada's had the strongest coach certification program in the world is because many generations of coaches have stuck with it. And by that, I mean people delivering the clinics, people giving, of their time to, to make sure that coaches are grounded in the right things. And I think that we're at a point now. I can remember after '72, I always used to tell people Canadians understand the emotion of playing, and Europeans understand the artistry of playing. And somewhere in there is the hybrid and the beauty of the game. And I think there's as much skill on the ice nowadays as ever. I'd like to think that coaching is keeping up with that, but by keeping up with that, I'm talking about ethical coaching, morality compass, if you will, morality clause. You can obviously you understand why, but this has been a part of my DNA, and I think for everybody on this call, all of you, for since you started coaching, quite honestly, this approach got me jobs and it also cost me jobs, which sort of identifies the dichotomy that we live in with kind of right and wrong, winning and losing, winning, what is success, et cetera, et cetera. When the most important thing we should be doing is making sure that the experience every single day is exceptional for the participants, boys and girls playing, and by extension, the people that volunteer their time, the people that work in the concession, the maintenance people in the rink or whatever the case may be. It should be just extraordinary because that's the dynamic. And I think, Wally, kudos to you for staying with it. I'm glad that they've done that. I would like to see more members across the country, incorporate that program amongst others. But it's a slow burn on the water. It takes a little time.
one of the things, Tom, that working with Hockey Canada, what I appreciated the most was the diversity of its structure and all the branches, sort of like being independent.
Hmm. Yeah.
And for the governing body to dictate what they should do is almost impossible.
Hmm.
And it's just the modus operandi.
Hmm.
It's
That's the key though, Wally.
yeah,
What's the ideology?
yeah,
What is the ideology of Hockey Canada? And what does that look like in Mississauga compared to Victoria? Compared to Timmins, Ontario, and Great Slave Lake. What is that ideology? But if that's the same, if that part's consistent, then we put the pen in your hand and you write the story.
yeah,
And the bottom line is as long as we have sort of collective code of ethics and a personal code of ethics, the next generation will do fine. We have to make sure that we continue to be examples of that. Um, I think people in our demographic are absolutely essential to move things forward. I'm in that now, and there was a time where I'm always been all ears, but now listen to the experiences that we've all had and the ability to share that. Even Brent, just listening to Brent, um, was highly motivating, and it was very I made an emotional connection with that. And I think that we've got to make sure that we continue to, I would like to think that little conversations like this are going on, not just across the country, but in every walk of life. If there's a neighborhood, that's got nothing but kids in it, are the parents, do they have a little parent group and they talk about how everybody's doing? Where the parents, all the kids in our block, if it's a sports team or whatever, are we having these conversations? Are we listening to, as Brent calls it, not to steal the phrase, but elders, people of experience, that have lived this life? Do we pay attention to that? Because there's no question it's fleeting right now. And all we have to do is pick up, I was going to say the newspaper, but pick up your cell phone, the surrogate everything, coach, mom, dad, teacher, and get our information through AI or social media. That's a 50-50 proposition. We need to talk like this, and we need other people to hear that. So I'm really happy that has stuck, Wally.
Can I interject something here?
Go ahead.
Yeah, we all know Bob Murdoch, and I used to sit beside him in the men's hockey all the time. And he told me that he would never coach a team without a team covenant. And he started doing it when he was coaching in Germany. So he sent me a copy of his team covenant, and it's made up totally by the players. And it's not very long, 5 or 7 points. And he said, whenever there's any problem whatsoever during the season, they go back to the team covenant and say, we all agreed on this. And it was the decision maker, whether discipline had to be taken or, all sorts of things like that. And ever since then, I've always had a team covenant, and they're really, really valuable. And one of the captain carries it with them in their bag. So it's always there, in the games and practices and all that sort of thing. So I just wanted to throw that in about what Mud said.
Dave, back in the day, we were coached. Back in the day, we were coached by grounded, ethical coaches, like our pioneer coaches. Um, they had those values. They shared information. They didn't give secrets. And I think it's coming full circle. I think there's a more open level of sharing of information because it's so easy to access now. And sharing is becoming really accelerating the learning process for everybody. And back in our era, and even today, all of the focus is on technical and tactical, and there needs to be ethical coaching modules because without that foundation and sense of direction, the X's and O's won't make a bit of difference. We get caught up in, the forecheck and the D zone and the power play and all those little things, and the managing / shortening of the bench to the detriment of developing more players at a younger age. And I think that adding ethical coaching modules are more important now than technical tactical modules. I think today's players, they watch YouTube, they watch highlights, they're tuned in to the game more than coaches. And I'm looking at the iPads on the bench, and I'm more curious about what the heck are they thinking.
Mhm.
than me thinking, yeah, I can tell you something because I'd be afraid to coach today.
Well, Walt,